Hey everybody, welcome to another video review. So this is my promised review of the two Star Wars Episode 4 New Hope lightsabers, the Luke Skywalker lightsabers. So these are sort of like the holy grails of that movie's hilts. So pretty cool. I'm gonna have to stitch this together. So here I'm just kind of panning around. I'm kind of backing up a little bit so you can see all of this. This is, of course, the Elite Edition that I showed you earlier. And then this is the signature version. Now, I don't know if you can actually tell even through the acrylic, but there is actually a pretty striking difference, even just looking at the two behind acrylic glass. You can tell that the Elite Edition is definitely shinier and more, just sort of more chrome, and the Signature Edition, has more of that brushed finish. Remember that the Signature Edition of the New Hope Luke Skywalker is identical to the limited edition, other than the Signature Edition engraved on the end of it. And the Elite Edition is made of completely, new and upgraded materials. That's kind of the idea of it. Only available again to the Collector Society members. This was made, as you can see, in 2005, July 10th, 2005. And over here is the Signature Edition of the Episode 4. Interestingly enough, they actually did not put the date. I missed that. So for A New Hope, they never put the date that they made it. That was left off the plaque. And in most of the other second plaques, they do actually put the date on there. Of course, if you research it, you'll know that this was November 2005 to 2006. The date was provided for the insert photo of Mr. Hamill actually signing this plaque. So there you have it. Another thing that's obvious to see is that the control box is placed at the 9 o'clock position for the Signature Edition, and it's placed at the 3 o'clock position for the Elite Edition. Why Master Replicas made that decision is anyone's guess. It could just be that this was a indirect homage to the movie where multiple props were used, and some of the props had the control box in one position versus the other. Superficially, they look almost identical, as they should. Obviously, they're both sourced from the same lightsaber prop, but there will be some minute differences as we begin to break it down. Okay, so there you have it. Now, before getting into a whole lot more detail and actually handling it, I wonder if those of you who's a little bit more eagle-eyed or who cared enough pieced this together from watching the previous video reviews of both my Signature Edition and Elite Edition. But now that I have them side by side, I can actually finally point it out. It's a pretty amazing thing. Look at the edition number for the Elite. It's number 245 out of 1,000. And look at my number for the Signature Edition. It is number 245 out of 750. That is actually pretty stunning. Now, I realize, obviously, that the Signature and the Elite Editions are more limited. There's only 1,000 of the Elites out there. There's only 750 of the Signatures out there. But honestly, that's insane that I managed to get the exact same matching number over 20 years later. I got the Signature Edition from a collector in South Carolina in the United States. And then this Elite Edition just came in from a collector in the United Kingdom. So, completely different parts of the world, and yet they somehow both found their way into my collection at different times, completely random. One I found on eBay, the other one I found through the rpf.com. I just think that is just pretty incredible. And I don't have any doubt that I'm probably the only person in the world with a matching Elite and Signature Edition version of Luke Skywalker's lightsaber from Star Wars Episode 4: New Hope, number 245. You see it right there in front of you. So I think that's pretty awesome, actually. Leaving you with that little bit of that little bit of a story, I'm going to stop, and the next time I cut back in, we're going to have the lightsabers out of the box and ready to actually see. In the meantime, though, I will actually get rid of the acrylics. So you can actually see the lightsabers a little bit better without the acrylic. So kind of backing up here again. I think from this angle, you can clearly tell that the metal here is very different, one versus the other. Hopefully you can tell that there's definitely that difference in shine. All right, I'll see you after the cut. Okay, welcome back after the cut. I did actually decide to give you one more small video clip, this time with the black background. So again, you can just more clearly sort of tell the difference between the two. This is a little bit harder to see, but definitely the base of the Signature Edition, I'm going to go real close. You can tell that the base is more of a matte black, more flat color, okay? And actually compared to the Elite Edition, you can see that the base is more glossy. So hopefully in this shot, you can more clearly see that the base is definitely glossier versus, again, the Signature Edition, which is way more flat. So that's another difference. Supposedly the acrylic case for the Elite Edition is a slightly higher quality as well, although again, in hand, they don't feel that much different. I do feel like the base is definitely quite a bit heavier because of this increased quality. Maybe the mirror finish is a little bit better as well, although that's hard to say. And obviously, we have a lot more difference in the materials. You can clearly tell that the metal, at least for the Elite version, is very, very different from the metal for the Signature Edition. And that'll be more clear as we compare the two. All right, so I will see you after the cut. Okay, welcome after the cut. So as you can see, I've laid both lightsabers down on these microfiber cloth wraps. I've taken them off of their display bases. I've actually felt the weight of each of the mirror bases, and in my opinion, they're both actually very similar, okay, in weight. So now we're gonna take, the first thing we're gonna do is we're just gonna do the weight test. So my left hand is the Elite version. In my right hand is the is the Signature Edition. And the first thing that comes to mind is that the Signature Edition is awfully heavy. Comparing like the New Hope Signature Edition Luke Skywalker with the Empire Strikes Back, which I've made a video about, the difference is actually like stunning. Like the Empire Strikes Back really feels almost like hollowed out, whereas the New Hope like just feels incredibly solid. So that's like number one difference, is that the number one thing that comes to my mind is, wow, this Signature Edition of New Hope is pretty darn heavy. But then compared to the Elite Edition, like this bad boy is at least 50% heavier, I think, in my hand than this. Like when you lift together, it's clear that this lightsaber is way, way heavier than this one. So that's actually pretty insane, okay? So I thought that, I thought that when I lifted this up, because it didn't compare the two, when I went back upstairs and I actually kind of took this off of its a display case to feel it and look at it, I was like, wow, maybe they're the same weight because this felt so heavy. But when you actually have them both in right and left hand together, without doubt, this is not as heavy as this. So the difference between aluminum and stainless steel is pretty darn significant. Okay, so moving on, now that we got the weight out of the way, let's take a look. So obviously the major, the major components of these sabers are the same. You have the bubble strip, you have the bunny ears, the button, the beer tab, the glass eye, the bulb holder, all of that, the rubber grips. So, this is all the same. The obvious difference is that you can tell, because they're literally mirror images of each other, you can tell that the clamp box or the control box, however you want to call it, that is on the, the 9 o'clock position on the Signature Edition, and it's on the 3 o'clock on the Elite Edition. So again, the mirror images, so the clamp box definitely is in different positions, which means when you display them on their, display cases, it's going to be pointing like that. Okay, so there you have that. And also, if you look at the metal, it's very, very clear that this is aluminum on one side, and this is basically chromed stainless steel on the other. Hopefully you can see that's way shinier on the left, which is the Elite Edition, and it's more of a brushed metal finish on the stainless, not the stainless. It's more of a brushed metal finish on the Signature Edition. Okay, so here you go. So that's another difference. The location of the holes, the location of the the grooves from the Graflex. This is all essentially identical. So there you go. Let's move it on over here. So interestingly enough, even though this is a mirror image like this, the box is also, the control box is also just a little bit different position. So here it tends to be a little bit more further down, and this one is a little bit rotated up. So this is not quite as down as this, if you can kind of, like compare the two. Okay. So in other words, the positioning of this, other than the 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock, which is a huge difference, it's also positioned just a little bit differently, respective to the T-tracks and to the cylinder itself. So when you look at this, it should be going out the other way. There's a little notch here, a little hole here. There's the hole over here. Rotating it. And then finally all the way over here, you can see another interesting difference, again, that you would only catch if you actually own both and really looked into it, is next to the lever, you can see that this actually is a bit hollow, okay? There's a hollow hole here, along with the two openings here and the grooves. And then if you compare that with the Signature Edition, you can see that there is no hole. It's completely filled in. It's a very subtle difference, again, between the two, okay? And again, there's just so much difference in weight between the two. In terms of the buttons, let me just take a look here. Again, I'm trying to be careful. We're handling basically props that's like thousands of dollars. So here is the button on the Elite Edition with the beer tab and the power switch. And then this is the button on the Signature Edition, beer tab and power switch, basically identical. If you want to lift up, you can also, of course, take a look at the D-ring. So look, if we line up here like this, you can definitely tell that they're mirror images. One Signature Edition, the other Elite Edition. Again, hopefully you can clearly tell the difference between the brushed finish of the aluminum on the right and the stainless steel chrome of the Elite Edition on the left. I don't see or feel particularly much of a difference in terms of the rubber T-tracks. They both feel good. They both feel good. If it's different, I can't tell. The bubble strips also look essentially identical on both sides. Put them next to each other. So you can clearly tell that, okay? Now, looking at the undersurface, the glass eye is another area where there's a pretty big difference. In the Elite Edition, again, you can actually feel the glass, I can actually touch it. It's a bit more superficial. It's still recessed, but I think you can clearly tell that, you know, you can feel this, right? That's a little bit more superficial, this glass eye. Whereas in the Signature Edition, it's a lot, excuse me. Whereas the Signature Edition, you can tell that it's a lot deeper and it's a lot more recessed. I know it's kind of hard to tell on a, you know, kind of flat video, but you have to actually angle it with the right light to be able to see where that glass eye is. It's a lot deeper in the recess. I mean, I don't know why that is. I mean, maybe this is just my version. Again, you know, the world isn't a perfect place. It could just be that while they were constructing these hilts, that for whatever reason, you know, when they made this version or this particular lightsaber, they just simply didn't push the glass eye as superficial as you could have. It definitely looks like you could get a little bit closer. So I'm going to try to show you this angle here. And then I'm going to take a risk, get it real close. So hopefully you can sort of tell how the upper eye is just a little bit farther up than the bottom one. So there you go. I mean, whatever, that is a pretty little tiny nitpicky thing, but again, when you're comparing sabers of this quality, all you've got are nitpicky things like, oh, there's a hole there, there's no hole here, the glass eye is more recessed here versus there. Another thing is that the bunny ears, okay, so we have to show you this way. So the bunny ears, you can tell on the Signature Edition, is a lot wider apart than the bunny ears of the Elite Edition. So hopefully you can tell this is a pretty big difference. Look at how narrow. It's kind of a struggle, by the way, just it's kind of a struggle just holding the Elite Edition like this because it's so heavy, but hopefully you can now tell. I'm going to just actually gently rest it. I'm going to rest it here so I don't move. So look at how much wider the Elite Edition on my, how much wider the Signature Edition on my right is to the Elite Edition on the left. You can tell that the bulb holder though is about the same, okay? And there's asymmetry, by the way, in the bulb holder as well. So, you know, nothing is completely symmetrical. You can also tell that this thing is supposed to be a little bit more, you know, centered, but there you have it. This, you know, saber, both Elite and Signature, definitely, you know, has a lot of little working parts, a lot of little things you can press in terms of the knurling of these buttons. This one just seems to be a little bit deeper, you know, a little bit sharper versus the knurling here, but that could just be my imagination. You'll have to decide for yourself. So Elite and Signature, okay? So we'll put that back down here. What else? Now the tip here looks basically the same. The side vents look basically the same. You have the screw here. And then, of course, for the Elite Edition, same thing. The screw, the vents, everything looks pretty much the same. Again, this thing can move back and forth. A little bit asymmetrical. So that's basically about it for all these differences. I think the most striking difference is the weight due to the material, and then the positioning of the glass buttons, the particular size of the bunny ears, and the presence of a hole here. The presence of a hole here and no hole here. And then, of course, the clear difference in metal. One is stainless steel, one is brushed finish on aluminum, and it clearly shows that this one is chrome plated versus this. To be honest with you, I think some of the actual differences, like the bunny ear, the bunny ear position and the position of the glass eye, I don't know if that was really necessarily a planned difference between these two hilts, or whether they're just, very, very minor differences in human workmanship. A robot didn't make these; they had to be handmade, obviously, and there were probably just some variations in hand as they put these together. It could very well be that another signature edition or limited edition, lightsaber here may have a more superficial glass eye, where the glass eye is more closer to the surface, and another elite edition may have a glass eye that's further down and deeper, and the same thing with the width of the bunny ear. So I don't really know if this is something that's consistent across all signature editions or limited editions versus all elite editions. My suspicion is that these are basically just minor variations, again, inconsistency of workmanship at the factories, where they were making 1,000 of these and 750 of these. But I think, kind of showing you this kind of side by side like that, you're going to be able to tell a little bit easier, again, quite clearly the difference between, the metal and the materials of the elite versus the signature edition here. And the weight is very, very significant. A lot of the weight, in fact, most of the weight of the elite edition, like I mentioned in the separate video, is like in the middle to the base. I don't know why that is, but it is. So there you have it. Okay. So this is kind of again, a very rare, video review on YouTube. I don't think there's actually any real reviews actually of the Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope Elite Edition lightsaber, other than by Equinox, who was doing it to sell the saber. And there's certainly none that actually compares the two different ones. There's only a handful of people, I think, in the world who ever owned both the Elite and the Signature. I'm sure there's a few out there, but there's very, very rare. Even rarer are the ones who kept it for 20 plus years. So I hope you enjoyed this particular, video review. It's pretty unique, again, detailing all of the differences between the two, and they're surprisingly little. I mean, I guess you could say that the actual difference is pretty significant because of the entire construction, the entire kind of like quality of the components are completely different, right? Like the weight, stainless steel, chrome plating versus just brushed aluminum. But in terms of the details of the lightsaber, it's very close. I mean, you have the control boxes on opposite sides, but really other than that, everything else is the same. Bunny ears, bulb holder, glass eye, beer tab, the indentation or the angle of the T-tracks, the actual bubble strip. You got all those details right. So for that, that's actually pretty impressive. But for those of you, wondering whether it's worth it to own, to own both of them, I mean, of course, if you have the finances, it's a pretty remarkable thing to do. And I'm just kind of still internally amazed that I actually own a matching set. So that's pretty neat. It's a little extra, extra bonus, a little bit of icing on the cake, because I'm just playing with the button. You can actually press it. I shouldn't be doing that. This is a, $3,000 heirloom after all, not a toy. But if I had to choose, which one I wanted, without question, I would choose the signature version. I wish that they combined it so that the Elite was the signature and that this became the limited edition. That would have been pretty crazy, but this is the more accurate to the prop. I mean, they weren't, even the hero prop wasn't this like behemoth of a saber that's like well over 5 pounds. I'm guessing even 7-8 pounds. You're not having like a stainless steel monster on the set of Star Wars: A New Hope. It was probably a lot more likely that even the hero version was just basically brushed aluminum. So this is probably a bit more accurate to what the prop was really like on the set. And of course, this comes with Mark Hamill's signature, which, in my opinion, is like priceless. That's legacy right there. So I would still choose the signature version, even though the Elite is just simply more badass on every level, just because of the materials. Like when you hold this thing, it's just pretty amazing, But still, at the end of the day, legacy trumps all of that. So again, hope you enjoyed the opportunity to see these two legendary hilts sharing the screen together, so to speak. And until next time, do take care.